Alright guys, back again. So I'm going to do a review on The Final Terror, which I just bought the Scream Factory release. And depending on when this video is up, because I do have videos like for a couple months in advance, because I just really like to record, but sometimes I don't have time. So depending on where this comes out, you might or might not have seen a pickups video with this in it. But I got this because of course I've been Scream Factory collecting more than usual. Like I really love all the Scream Factory stuff, so I really want to try to buy them all. I know I can't do that really, but there's a lot that I want. And The Final Terror, I had seen before I bought this Blu-ray. I saw this a couple years ago, and honestly, I remember hating it a couple years ago. I thought it was so just uninteresting and so boring. But watching it again and watching it with the commentary with Andrew Davis, who's the director, I found some things to enjoy about it and more. And I felt like I was just being a cynical little like person whenever I watched it the first time a couple years ago. I'm like, this is just the same like kind of thing. Where I do love slashers and I love what they do, even if they're not technically great movies. But this one was one that at first, whenever I first saw it, I was like, this just didn't work for me. But rewatching it again, there's a good amount of things that I can praise about it, and I actually really appreciate about it. Um, just after rewatching it again, this is only the second time I've seen it, so it's been a long time. So let's get started with The Final Terror, starring Daryl Hannah. I like how these old horror slashers like have a actor that becomes bigger in something else. Like in The Burning, it has Jason Alexander and Holly Hunter in it. And like Friday the 13th, it has like Kevin Bacon and like, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. But this one has Daryl Hannah. It's cool to see her really young like this. Um, and the movie itself, the biggest positive I can honestly give The Final Terror is I really appreciate the look of it, if that makes sense. I think that the woods in this movie feels like a character. It really works with the atmosphere and the camera work in this, even though it's just like it's basic camera work. Like you're just literally sitting the camera in this real lighting. You're not, it's not lit. It's just literally you're in the woods in the night or in the day, and it's just regular camera. There's no lighting to it. And that's what I really love about old 70s, 80s horror. Whenever they're just lit with real lighting, like real life lighting, like they don't have lights to it, where like it looks scarier. For example, like The Evil Dead, like the original one, like that is just really is incredibly effective because of how the darkness works in that movie, because it's legit darkness. It's not like they're making darkness. They're really in the woods in the dark, and that's all they had. They didn't have any money or enough money to get any lighting or sets. They just used their own camera in the dark. And I think that movies like that in the 70s and 80s, especially Evil Dead, that's one of the ones I always point to. I think that camera work in the 70s and 80s, while being very extremely simple, can be extremely effective whenever it just looks creepy. And I think that this movie does a pretty decent example of that as well. It just looks like the woods are a character. It's a presence. Like there's something killing them off. You don't know what it is, but it's so hard to see in these woods because of how the lighting. There's no lighting to it, and it's just regular camera work with no special touches to it. And that's what I love about 70s and 80s horror. It feels like there's more of a legitimacy to it, even though it's more simple with like camera work in the 70s and 80s with low budget slashers or low budget horror movies. But I love that. That's such a great use of exploitation for me because it makes the atmosphere really good. And the atmosphere in this is good. I do like how the woods feel like a presence. Like you don't know there's somebody out there killing these people, but you don't know where the person is, and it's really cool. I just think it's effective. I like too how this is a slasher, but there's minimal gore to it, and I thought that was fine because I thought it was effective, like what they showed. It was like Halloween in that way. Um, Speaking of Halloween, this one I think was made right whenever Halloween was made because it was shelved for 2 or 3 years because I think something about production company, or not production company, maybe like the company that was gonna get it maybe went out of money or something. I'm trying to remember if what actually happened, but I know that the movie was shelved regardless for a couple of years. And then after movies like Blade Runner that Daryl Hannah was in, like they made this movie get released after that, so like they banked on her fame, which I think is totally fine, because she was an actress and wanted to be an actress. But like, it's funny that they waited and they couldn't get the money, and then right when Blade Runner came out, they're like, "Yep, we're gonna do it." Or maybe it was a year later. I think this was '83 and Blade Runner was '82. But it reminded me of like how what they did in Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation with like Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. Like they both became famous while that movie was shelved, and then they brought it out because of them being more famous or becoming more popular in film. So it just reminds me of that as well. This movie has a lot of similarities to a lot of other horror movies, and I think that that's hilarious. Like I said, it was shelved for a couple of years, and I just think that's it looks like it's definitely late 70s, and it looks good, like just how creepy it looks. Um, it is sometimes as well similar in look to The Burning, which I mean you can argue most of these slasher movies in the in the early 80s, late 70s are similar in looks, but this one just reminded me of like The Burning a lot, and that's not a negative to The Burning, and I like The Burning way more than this, but I think that this is still solid enough. But I felt like there was a similarity with like the camera shots with the cutaways. Like it felt like The Burning in a way, not like gore cutaways, but like cutaways in terms of like when something happens and then you see the next shot at something else. Like it reminded me of The Burning a lot. Um, so the plot is very basic. Like I said, it's a typical slasher, but there's not really much I could say about the characters or anything. There's not really anything at all. There's like one guy who like had a crazy mother, but then I want to talk about the ending. Which if you haven't seen the ending, spoilers here. But the ending to the Final Terror. Speaking of another similar horror movie, it came out in 19. I mean, I think it was made in 1979. So it probably was made right before Friday the 13th, which is funny. That might have had this twist before Friday the 13th. I might be wrong though. I'm gonna have to look it up after this video, but Friday the 13th, the original had the twist of like, it's not Jason, it's the mother. Or not really a twist. If you watch the first Friday the 13th, you'd be like, who's the killer? You wouldn't really know. You wouldn't think it's Jason in the first movie if it was the first movie ever made. But anyways, in the twist of Friday the 13th, the mother of Jason, Pamela Voorhees, is the killer. And in this one, this mother is a killer as well, a mother of one of the main characters, but the main character is still alive. That is the son of the mother, but like the mother was, I think, raped whenever she was young, so she went crazy and lived out in these woods and started killing off all the teens. And it was weird how similar it was to Friday the 13th, even though this probably could have been made first. But again, I'm not completely sure. I'm not completely sure how long, if this was 1980 or 1979, because it could have been made first. But regardless, both of them have the mother twist, which I thought was funny. It just was very interesting. And the mother is dressed up like a barbarian, just out in the woods. And it cracks me up. This is what made me mad when I first watched this, because like it's like, oh, the reveal is the killer, and she walks up and then she gets set in the trap that they set for the killer, and then she gets spiked up into a tree branch, and then it flies back and forth, and then the movie ends, and I'm like, that was a really dumb way to end it, like where we first watched it. But honestly, like ending it that way, like on rewatch, I was like, yeah, that's fine, because like it's over, the horror's over, and you don't have you don't have the killer survive, and I thought that was pretty cool. Because you don't see that much in slashers. Like the killer usually is still alive, or it's something twisty at the end. But they had the twist of being the mother of this guy. So overall, like this one, it's weird because, like I said, at first watch years ago, I hated it, and then rewatch again, I'm like, it has some good atmosphere to it. It has some good use of atmosphere. Like it does work well. Um, it's not one of the most memorable, like definitely not. I think on Letterboxd on rewatch I gave it like a 2.5 out of 5 stars, because it's not anything special. Like it really isn't that special of a movie. I mean, if you're not a fan of actively looking at slashers, this is definitely one I feel like you could skip. But for me, like I did enjoy being a fan of slashers. Like I did enjoy things about it, but I didn't love it. I really still didn't love it that much. I definitely didn't hate it on this watch like I did the first time, but I didn't love it either. Like it's nothing super special, but I liked how it had some restraint to it with not showing that much gore, but it was also made right around or right before Friday the 13th. So it's like you didn't have that exploitation factor yet. You had some violence in horror movies, but it wasn't like Friday the 13th and on, where like it was a slasher territory. And this one is a slasher, but it's very minimal in gore for the most part. So yeah, pretty much all I could say about the Final Terror. I'm glad I rewatched it. I'm glad I bought the Scream Factory release. I think this is a great release. I need to watch the special features. I did listen to the audio commentary from Andrew Davis, but I haven't seen any interviews. Or it says there's interviews. Well, I guess there's only interviews and a commentary and a trailer. So there's not that many special features, but I'm still glad I own this in my collection, and I might watch it again in the future because there were things I did like on this rewatch. So that's it for today on talking about the Final Terror. Got more reviews coming up soon, so stay tuned, and I'll see you guys later.